Hey there. So I have made it to Dalton, Georgia, where I've stopped to spend the night. So I was at Claytor Lake, Virginia. I had to think there for a minute. That's where I spent the night last night. Slept. I didn't even set an alarm, and I was kind of surprised. I slept. It was after 11 o'clock Eastern Time when I woke up this morning. And so I made it on down to Kennesaw, Georgia. Was able to drop and hook. And in the meantime, they'd sent a pre-planned load that picked up at the company terminal in Marietta, Georgia. And so I was able to, take the empty trailer over there from Kennesaw and pick up the loaded trailer. It was already, someone else had already loaded it. They'd picked it up somewhere in the Atlanta area and dropped it there at the yard, and so I was able to pick that up, and I could have spent the night there at the yard, but I still had 3 hours that I could drive, so I decided I would just go ahead and come on north, and so it made it, I don't know, probably at least 50 miles or 55 miles. There's one of the pilot truck stops up here that I like, I kind of like to stop at because I've always been able to find parking spot here. That's one nice thing about northern Georgia in particular. There's lots of truck stops. There are a lot of trucks on it. Interstate 75 is very busy, even on the weekends. So usually Saturday nights, if you can, are easier to. Friday and Saturday nights typically are easier to find a parking spot than the rest of the week. But around cities, if there's a truck stop in a city or near a city, usually you have drivers that live in the city that are using the truck stop as a parking lot, and so typically those are full. Excuse me. Those kinds of, a truck stop in a city or near a city is going to be full, and if you can find one that's sort of out in a more rural area away from the city, then especially on like I say, on Friday or Saturday nights, it does make it quite a bit easier to find a parking spot. So I came on up here, and so the load that I have is going to Sterling, Illinois. So I've still got, let me take a look here, what does that say, 722 miles to go. 722 miles according to my GPS, and the load doesn't have to be there. Let's see, today was Saturday, so I got Sunday. So the load has to be there Monday at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. So I'll be there at 3:30. I'll time it because they want you there an hour ahead, and so I'll get there an hour ahead of time. So should be able to make that pretty much with not that much pressure. I really don't like to push too hard, but sometimes I have to. But I like to, if I'm left to my own devices, I like to drive about 8.5 hours a day. Don't really like to drive the full 11 hours because you really got to kind of push to do that. And so I kind of like to drive 8.5 hours if I can, and that's usually, depending, that's usually what kind of comes out on the Qualcomm. Not 8.5, 9 hours. If you really push in 11 hours, in a few days you're going to run out of your time anyway. So, and if you use no more than 8.5 hours, which is not really possible for me, but if you use no more than 8.5 hours, then you never run out. Without going into all the details of the logbook rules. So, in any case, as I, after I left Virginia, or was leaving Virginia, there's still a lot of snow on the ground, and then as I got closer to the Tennessee line, the snow kind of, on Interstate 81, the snow kind of, you could see where there was less and less and less, and then over by Knoxville, there was still some snow. You could see it just here and there, and especially in shaded areas, you could see a little bit that was left. And then now down here in the Atlanta area, at the place where I was dropping and hooking, I saw a couple of little places. Now, of course, this was a giant place and had all kinds of trailers in there, drop trailers. I saw a couple of dirty-looking pieces of snow. But for the most part, there's no snow. And I talked to the guard there at that guard shack, and he said that it took about a day and a half to melt. Now, the first ice thing that they had, or snow or whatever it was, that caught all those people on the freeway, he said that happened during rush hour, the evening rush hour, and I could see where that would be a complete disaster. Now, if those people knew, I don't know if they knew, if it was a total surprise. I don't think it was, but if they knew that it was going to happen, they should have left work early, because Atlanta has incredible traffic. Just they've got good freeway systems. Georgia's got really pretty good roads, but they don't have any snow removal, and because very rarely do they have ice or snow, so they're just not prepared for it because they don't have to be. And so even the threat that it's going to do that, they should have been they should have let them out at noon or something. But you probably saw, I know I saw some aerial photographs and maybe a little video of the abandoned cars. They're just kind of stuck on the freeway, and you just have this massive traffic jam. And I think it got cold, and it was still snowing and icing, and it turned into a real disaster for a lot of people. Now, of course, if you're in a truck, as long as you got your fuel, and a truck like this, you got a sleeper, you could just, I'm sure there are drivers that were trapped in that, and they just went to bed. And hopefully they had a little food with them. But somebody that's in their car, that turns into a big problem. So, but he said that this second one that they had just in the past few days, that happened, I guess, at night or whatever, and there were, so everybody was already at home whenever it happened. So it wasn't nearly the disaster that that first one was. So, but tonight, it's like 30. I don't know, when I parked my truck here, it said the thermometer here on the truck, which is actually pretty accurate on this International, 33 degrees. So I don't know where they have the sensor mounted for that, but it's pretty accurate. And a lot of the Freightliners I've driven that had built-in thermometer, and of course they display it on the LCD in the dash. A lot of those Freightliners, it was accurate as long as I was moving, but once you'd stop, then the thing would give false readings. It would be too warm, and obviously there's heat coming off the motor that was affecting it. But wherever they've got the sensor mounted on this International, I don't know where the sensor's at, but it stays pretty accurate, even if doesn't matter whether the motor's running or not or whatever. It stays pretty accurate. So they've got it somewhere where it's not getting it's not getting heat off the engine, and it's not being affected if, let's say, the sun, it's not being affected by that either. So they figured out some place to mount it, which is pretty good. So I've got a couple of little video clips that I recorded. I'm going to insert right here and be back afterwards. So this is the parking lot on Saturday morning of the truck stop here at Claytor Lake, Virginia. And it's probably not showing up. There's a few little light snowflakes coming down out of the sky. You can see how mushy the parking lot is. There's lots of frozen crap that's still on the parking lot surface, or a lot of it, and then so we'll just pan on around. And the sun is actually trying to poke through as well, but there are a few little snowflakes that are trying to come down. So I've made it to Kennesaw, Georgia, and this is a fairly small part of the lot that they've had me bring my trailer to, and so in any case I'm seeing just little bits and pieces of snow kind of on the ground. I think pretty much everything has melted except there's just a few little pieces here and there, but this is a small lot, and so I had to back the trailer that I'm dropping. I backed it. They've got it kind of parked 2 layers deep, and so I backed my trailer all the way up against the curb back here. Alright, so I'm back. We've inserted the little video clips. One of those actually, if I'm able to insert it, and I think I can, I actually recorded that. I've got a little like an iPod Touch, and so I recorded it with that, and I was able to push that up to Dropbox, and then of course Dropbox, I've got Dropbox here on my phone, as my Galaxy S3 phone, and as long as I should have been able to insert that, but it was at a Flying J in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I stopped, and there was a lot of the Flying J's and a lot of the pilots have they were going to sell, they were gearing up to sell natural gas as a fuel, and they had all these these truck manufacturers were committing to sell natural gas, to run the trucks on natural gas, because it was going to be considerably cheaper than diesel fuel. And for whatever reason, the truck manufacturers sort of backed off, and so Flying J and Pilot seem to be stuck, at least for the present time. They're stuck with these facilities that they've got a couple of, usually it's typical, they're all identical. They've got a couple of lanes for natural gas, and of course these things are not in service. I think I saw one of them actually somewhere that was in service, and all of the rest of them, they've got a fence around them, and they're all lit up and so on and so forth, but they're not being used, which is kind of unfortunate. And they located them in the parking lot, because that's the only place they really had a place to put them, apparently. And so this location right here where I'm at actually has one of these things. It's all fenced off, and I remember when they built it, I wondered, at the time I was wondering, that was a couple, 3 years ago, I was wondering, what are they doing? And it was, that's what it turned out. And so they've got them in a lot of locations. They've got these, not all of their locations, but they have them in a lot of them, and the things just so far they're not being used. Now that may change. That's always subject to change in the future. I think natural gas would be a good fuel because it, for one thing, it burns cleaner, which is always good, and it's cheaper, and it's very abundant. We've got, the natural gas. There is just especially nowadays with the new technology of extracting it, natural gas is in tremendous abundance, so that would be a good fuel. But so I don't know. Of course they have to change. You have the chicken and egg problem. Got to change everything over. So don't know if that may eventually happen. Now you can set like a car or a pickup, or even some trucks are set up for natural gas. Not the type of truck that I drive, probably, but some trucks are more, specialty type trucks. And there are places where you can fuel your a natural gas powered vehicle. But you have, if you've got something like that where you've converted it, you've got to know where you're going to be getting the fuel at, and you'd have to kind of keep tabs on it, because you can't just get it anywhere. So if you're set up for that, then you really need to know where you're going to get it at. So that could be an issue, So, but so in any case, what I briefly wanted to talk about. A lot of people wonder, they're confused, and they wonder, why does evil exist? Why would God create evil? And it seems, it can seem like a really perplexing question. Why would God create evil? Why would He allow it? I've heard people say, well, why would He allow it, or why would He create it, or so on and so forth. And it's actually, if you really understand the nature of our existence, then you understand, and it says right in the Bible that God created evil. Evil has a purpose. And the purpose is, you got to understand, we as human beings are given a choice. We can either, the typical love God, meaning, and even those words, people have knee-jerk reactions to that. We can either want, love, etc., the identity that comes from our Creator, that our Creator offers us, or we can rebel and do the opposite, or try to be our own God, basically. And that's also it's right in the book of Genesis, and it's very true. We can try to be our own God, and of course we as human beings have a proclivity to do that. It's the idea that we're born in sin. So if you were God, how would you create a creature that could really be conscious of you and really consciously want the identity that you offered them? Because again, if what good would it be if you created a wind-up robot, human being robot, that just said, I love you, I love you, I love you, and didn't have a choice, that was just completely enslaved to the identity, then, you'd be another animal. You'd be a dolphin, or you'd just be a human being, but maybe you'd be more sophisticated, got a bigger brain, and so on and so forth, but you'd still be a robot. And so how would you create a creature that could, you'd have to offer a way to rebel. Now, and that's where evil comes in. Evil gives us the opportunity to sort of rebel. And so that's why evil exists. And because of that, it literally has to be bad. Because, God represents everything that, is good. And so evil has to be, if there's going to be an opposing force, then it has to be really bad. And so there's no such thing as just sort of a little bit of evil. A lot of people kind of want to think that they can have just have a little bit of evil and kind of mix it in, and that doesn't work. So a little bit, it comes down to, which direction are you moving in? Because we're all kind of born in sin. We have this idea we're imperfect, and we are imperfect. And then it comes down to which direction are you moving in? Are you moving in, you moving towards one direction, or are you moving the other way? And, in order for, people will say they want to know the truth, and they want to find their Creator, and so on and so forth. But when it comes right down to it, do they really? And so evil can be very subtle, can be extremely subtle, and it always makes an appeal to the wrong side of our egos. And so it, and you can always tell, because it ends up bringing a curse on, on people. It ends up kind of bringing a curse on us as people, and so if we sort of fail, we rebel against the rules, as it were. You have moral rules, and you try, you rebel against those, and of course you have to, by definition. If you're going to rebel, you're going to have to rebel. You got to rebel from a moral standpoint, and that that curses people. That and that's, you wonder what's gone wrong with the world, or what's gone wrong with America. We brought the curse on ourselves. We deserve what's happening to us. We really, as a nation, we really deserve what's happening to us. People want to blame the politicians, this politician, or political groups, or whatever. Look in the mirror. We've brought all of this on ourselves. But it has to happen anyway. The Roman Empire, you look at the Roman Empire, and it was around for, 800 years? So 400 years, the first 400 years, the Roman Empire was on the ascent. And it was getting, getting better, as it were. And then it took 400 years of decline before it fell apart. Now, it's happened to America much faster than that. And I believe the reason that it's happened so much faster is because of improving knowledge, improving technical knowledge, improving technology, improving communications. So, as technology improves, as communications improve, things happen at a much faster rate. And, I can, just during my lifetime, I can remember back in the 70s and the 80s, you'd actually write a letter to somebody, and maybe they'd get the letter a few days later, and then they'd take their time and they'd write a response and mail it back to you. And of course, then computers came along and email came along, and that sped that up dramatically. And of course, the technology continues to improve. Now, technology by itself is not bad. It's just a tool. People kind of sometimes get confused, and they think, well, if you throw away the technology, then or limit the technology, somehow you're going to limit the damage to your society. And the Amish, if you know anything about the Amish, that's kind of what their philosophy is. That if they limit the technology, and they're very careful about, as a group, because it's almost like a religious kind of a dictatorship, or a religious, what's the word? The word I'm looking for is right on the tip of my tongue. Totalitarian state. It's the Amish society is really like a totalitarian state, but it's just this is these are the rules, and so they very carefully consider which technology they'll allow, group by group by group, and if you can't abide by that, they just toss you out. You're out on your ear. You either join the group and live by the group rules, or go away and don't come back. So, but so they're kind of, the reason that they've been able to be successful is not so much, they are limiting the technology because they think that that is going to, and probably to a certain extent it does help them kind of maintain a chokehold over people. But the big thing is the it is a totalitarian state to a certain, to a large extent. Except they don't, they can leave. They're free to go at any time, but they've got mental chains. So and very few of them actually manage to leave. The vast majority end up being in the society. But technology by itself is neither good nor bad. It's just knowledge. It's what people do with it. So you can use technology for evil, or you can use it for good. It can be powerful both ways. It really goes back to our morals as human beings. And if we've got the right identity and the right set of morals, then then we can have, then the knowledge isn't destructive. So, anyway, I think I better be bringing this to a close. It's getting dangerously long. I think these videos are getting longer and longer. So anyway, from Dalton, Georgia, I'll catch you later.